Hey guys, welcome to Drinks with Dreads. I'm here in Convent, Louisiana, here at Manresa House Retreats. Behind me, you can see this path goes all the way back to the Mississippi River. And on this side, this is where I've spent my whole weekend on silent retreat with 109 other men for 4 days. We got here on Sunday, and we just finished here on Wednesday morning, Wednesday lunch. And what I just did, I just sat down with a good friend of mine, Ian, and just talked about how he got here. He's been coming for 8-9 years. This is my second year, and just the benefits of coming to a silent retreat. And silence means silence. There's no talking, very little communication, and just the beauty and the strength and power of that. So grab a drink and enjoy. I'm here with my friend Ian, and I've known Ian since junior year of high school, I think.
We were about 16.
We went to St. Lawrence in Sugar Land and went through Life Teen program together. And Ian's actually who got me here. And right now we just finished our 3-day, 4-day-ish silent retreat here at Manresa House of Retreats in Convent, Louisiana. And so I usually start off just asking people who they are. So where you're from, what your family look like, and what do you do for a living?
So my name's Ian Cullen. I was born in Minnesota, moved to Texas about when I was 10. Now we've moved from Houston to San Antonio. Have a beautiful wife, Holly, and a boy and a girl, Liam, who's the oldest, he's 4, and Madison, who's our youngest, she's 2.
How long have you all been married?
Since 2011, so 7 years, going on 8.
Okay, nice, that's awesome. And how long have you been coming here to Manresa?
Started coming to Manresa in, I believe, 2011.
Okay. So,
maybe even a year before that. And I've just really enjoyed coming here. I really enjoy the peace and the tranquility. And I really enjoy the opportunity to commune with God without outside distraction.
Yeah. So you've been coming here 8-9 years. How did you get here? Who invited you?
A gentleman by the name of Van DeWitt, who I actually met through St. Lawrence. He's one of my mentors. And I was kind of explaining to him what was going on in my life and kind of how I was looking for something more in terms of a relationship, not necessarily a relationship with God, but a retreat that was a little bit less structured and a little bit more toward, some advanced spirituality, which is what led me here. He invited me here, and I've been coming almost every year ever since.
Yeah, that kind of seems like a common story amongst the guys. Like the people were looking for something more. I know at my table, 2 or 3 out of all the guys that were there aren't Catholic. But at one point in their life, so Bill, who was sitting with me to my right, who you met, who's Episcopalian, he said he had been looking for something more, some sort of retreat for 15 years. If you're looking for 15 years, I think you're also kind of fighting it also. But after his wife died, he kind of went full force looking and found this place, and he's been coming since. I think this is his 5th year. And then one of the other guys invited another one, and he was actually telling us a story. He said he invited him, but I misheard. I thought he said you bribed him, and I said, did you invite, or did he say, did he invite you or did he bribe you? He said, well, it was more of a bribe because I didn't want to come. And he's not Catholic either, but he's been coming for years now. And I think the same thing for me. I had always wanted to go on a silent retreat. One year, there's one weekend, this is years ago, where I gave myself a silent retreat, which means I put a tent up in the backyard, told everyone not to talk to me for the weekend, and I had certain scriptures I wanted to read in. I walked everywhere, I went to mass by myself, and it was great, but I had been wanting to go for years. And then when we reconnected, I had just come back from doing a mission in North Dakota, at Chippewa Reservation, and literally, so we ran into each other at the 7:15 Sunday Mass, and we said, let's get together, and we met at Flying Saucer. But the night before, I was literally looking for retreats to go on, I looked at a Life Team does a kind of like a reunion type retreat for past staff. They also do a men's retreat, and I looked at Grand Coteau, and there's also Montserrat in Dallas.
Right.
And then I think I discovered this one, so I saw this one, and then when we grabbed beers, I was telling you the story of my time in North Dakota, and it was kind of just out of the blue. You're like, hey, have you been on a silent retreat? Do you want to go? And I said, well, actually, last night I was looking it up, and you said, all right, you're coming, I'm paying for you. And so that was how I got here. And yeah, I mean, it's just phenomenal time to get away and be still and be quiet and allow God to work. But
it's not really for the faint of heart, though.
Right. Yeah.
You have to be prepared to hear some things that you have maybe been ignoring or you've been fighting. It's very important that if you commit yourself to going on a silent retreat, that you understand that you're going to sit there and have a conversation with God. And sometimes the things that God asks us to work on are not what we came planning on working on.
Yeah.
Generally speaking, he has a very different plan. It's always what you need, but it's always, I've found, very different from what I come expecting to work on.
Yeah. I was reading in the book over the weekend, and the priest who wrote the book, he said, he's talking about the importance of the silence. And I'm sure they do this every year, right before we go into silence, they say how important it is to keep the silence. And in the book, the priest was saying how having someone sit in silence in a room by themselves is can be one of the most disturbing things you can do to someone, because then they have to sit with themselves, with the goal being to talk to God, but because other than that, you're going to be talking with yourself.
Right.
And that since we're so surrounded by noise, whether TV, movies, family, coworkers, work, the radio, all these things, our phones and everything on our phones, that most people don't ever experience like real silence, or at least allow themselves to, because when we're sitting, we can get on different apps or podcasts or music, and then you're not allowing your time to be still and to listen.
Yeah, it's an experience that I suggest everybody have at least once in their life. I've been on many retreats, and a lot of them have a period of silence, for 2, 3, 4 hours, sometimes one night.
Yeah.
And not to discount any of that, but that's a totally different experience from, walking from place to place for basically 3 days, and the silence goes beyond verbal. The silence is you don't make eye contact. You don't, you generally just are focused on your conversation with God and, the things he wants to say to you. Like, I think it's important that people, one of the things that it took me a couple years to get used to was that silence goes well beyond noise.
What do you mean?
So when I say that, eye contact, gestures, doing things beyond journaling or writing a letter, thinking about your outside job, or what you want to work on when you get home. All those things are so important to leave behind, because basically, in my opinion, that's just the devil trying to distract you from having a significant conversation with the Lord.
Yeah, and it's practicing just being present, because normally, outside of here, we're planning for things, we're getting ready for things, we're looking ahead, and really our main goal here is to be here. Like, I know for me, the beginning of the retreat was actually frustrating because of traffic in Houston and Baton Rouge, I got here an hour later than I planned on, so I missed, the happy hour, like one reunion with everyone once a year, which I missed last year, so it was like double frustrating. And then the next day I overslept and missed morning prayer, which means I didn't get a seat in the church, because whenever we come, we're told to sit in the same spot for all the meals and anytime we enter into the church and during any of the instructions, just so that it's not complicated. Like, everyone knows where to sit. You just go straight there and there's no fuss. And at some point I just had to be, that's fine, I'm here, like, just be here, it's no big deal. And it was hard for me to do because I didn't want to, interrupt anybody. So when Mass started, I stood in the back and I was like, I'm just going to stand here during Mass. I was like, no, that's dumb. I need to sit. I should sit. And so one of the guys didn't come to Mass, so there was an open spot in the back, but I wanted to make sure I found my spot. So for whatever reason, I was just so nervous to go and like tap on his shoulder and say, hey, is that open? But it was no big deal. The guy scooted over and he let me in, and but everyone's here for the same reason, so everyone understands, like, oh, well, he needs a spot, so it's not a big deal. You're not really interrupting. But over those 8-9 years, you're now in a position of planning, coordinating. What's your?
I'm called a co-captain.
Okay.
So basically, what that means is we're responsible for, the retreat house holds 111 people. Our goal is to always have 111 people, and our goal is to always make sure that the people that need a retreat get a retreat.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm part of the group that does the recruiting and the coordinating of who comes every year.
Mm-hmm. And this place, like Father Bueller,
Mm-hmm.
right? I think he was mentioning that most of the retreats throughout the year are full. Like, if you're on the list, and you stay on the list. So I went last year for the first time, and I was on the list for this time. And so really the only way you're not on the list is if you pull yourself out.
Correct. Yeah, you're on the list in perpetuity. So a lot of these lists are, 140 or 180 people, and there's 111 spots.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and this year it was 110. I think someone pulled out like the last minute or something.
Yeah, we had somebody that wasn't able to make it on Sunday.
Yeah. No, you don't have to answer this because it's an intimate, personal question. So feel free to say it's too personal. Would you be open to sharing what you got from this weekend, these 3 days?
Yes, one caveat.
Okay.
That I get to show it for my wife before you publish it.
Okay. Yeah.
So I can get her to sign off on it. What I got out of this weekend was renewal and encouragement in my marriage. 2 years ago, my daughter Madison was born. She spent 10 days in the NICU. Holly had a life-threatening procedure, a life-changing procedure that saved the baby and saved her life. She actually got blood transfusions. And in that process, she was no longer able to have any more children. I accepted that part of it. I think I personally dealt with it fairly well. I was a little guilty about it. I still, up until this weekend, there were a lot of things that I was still feeling guilty about that situation, with her losing her opportunity to have more children. Mm-hmm. We have 2 beautiful children, and thank God for that. But I didn't do a very good job for the last 2 years of being as supportive as I probably should have to her in that process. And I finally this weekend was able to deal with a lot of that guilt that I've felt, because I'm not very good at always being the helping hand emotionally that I probably should be to her. And so I got a lot of closure and a lot of encouragement, and got rid of some guilt and some grief over that. And Dr. Bueller, who you mentioned earlier, did a great job, reminding me that, I'm present, I'm there, I didn't run away from it. I've supported my wife and kids. With the divorce rate in the world as it is today, there's lots of people who just, when things get difficult, they run. Mm-hmm. He also talked about the 3 graces of confession, and I hope I don't screw this up. But he talked about the fact that one of the things that people forget about confession is sometimes the act of confession, if it's something that's ongoing, is more about the encouragement you receive from relieving yourself of that burden, even if it's only for that temporary amount of time that you're sitting in that room and you're talking to the priest as he represents Christ, and he offers you absolution. You know, that issue or that problem doesn't always necessarily go away, but you've been given the forgiveness, the strength, and the encouragement to continue to carry that cross on, even if it's not, you know, something that you're completely going to get over in that moment.
Yeah. I know for me, it started off rough and I was like really frustrated and kind of smoothed out. I think you mentioned that not until like the next day or so until you do like really set into the retreat. I think for me, mine was the talks were good. They weren't too or deep or super impactful for me, but I think what I got was just reminder, kind of like a reinvigoration. First reminder of that above everything, like with the spiritual exercises, principle and foundation of like God's first,
right,
before everything else. And what kind of impacted me from Father French talking about it in the book I was reading was just that a lot of times I'd never thought of this. We get hooked up on, you know, the virtues we want, the gifts of the Spirit we want, how we want to set up our prayer life, or all these details, but all that comes from God, and we just forget about Him and just try to get what we need, although it is from Him. We're not focusing on Him.
Right.
And the other thing I got was just a reminder of kind of along the same lines of just a reminder of how selfish I am. You know, like with what Erica went through with her postpartum depression, and now on the other end of it, still needing, you know, real, you know, spousal support, and that I'm selfish, and sometimes I'm not supportive at all. Like I want to do what I want to do, and she suffers because of that. Just a reminder that to be able to put her first. She's the one going through the suffering, so I can take a back seat, you know, support her.
It's such a hard thing to realize this day and age with the way everything works out. You know, I talk to a lot of my friends about this culture of me.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we have like things like, you know, Twitter, where you can go out and talk about what you're doing, Instagram, where you can take pictures of what you're doing. You know, it's very easy to fall into that trap that's set for you with your family, you know, where you get your priorities out of order. You know, God, and then your family, and then everything else. It's just very easy to fall into that trap.
Why do you keep coming?
I love it. Every year I come, usually about 3 weeks out. There's this panic of, oh, I can't go.
Yeah.
Every year.
Like something actually comes up, or you're like, I'm not gonna go.
I mean, you know, am I too busy at work? Is there too much going on at home?
Yeah.
You know, every possible reason you can think of not to come. I've probably called and discussed it with one of the other captains like 3 weeks out.
Yeah.
Now, that being said, once I'm here, every year, God gives me exactly what I need. Whether I knew I needed it or not. You know, lots of times I make the mistake of coming here with a plan.
Which is what we do.
Right.
Like, you know, yeah.
And I mean, there's been some years that I've come here and, you know, my conversation happens to be one of the most frustrating things I've ever gone through, because I'm not hearing what I think I want to hear. I'm hearing what God has to tell me.
Well, I think I remember last year you said you did a lot of fighting with God.
I do that every year. Every year. Yeah. About 36 hours worth.
Yeah.
You know, I keep coming though, because in the end, I get exactly what I need, exactly what God has sent me here to get. I leave with a sense of peace. I leave with a sense of fulfillment that I experiences. The silence and the quiet conversation and the quiet contemplation on what, who God is, what He's done for us, what He wants from us, and, that we're to take up our standard, as Ignatius said, and follow Him.
Yeah, I know for me, it always just like reignites a fire, just like sets it off again. I'm just like ready to go back home and to live it. Especially this year, it was just a reminder of loving him and loving Erica well, and like I'm just ready to go back. Like actually yesterday afternoon, I was like, I'm ready to go home now.
That happens to me every year.
I was like, I'm ready to, I was just like, oh, when can this end? Like I'm ready to go now. And it actually made me think of like I would love to do a 30-day, but we have 2 kids. They're 5 and 7. That's not happening anytime soon.
You can break it up though.
Yeah. I've even thought it would be an awesome experience, like say once like our girls are older, and then I don't know if they do this, but like then like both Erica and I can do it at the same time. That would be intense.
I find that it's interesting, on the way back, whoever I happen to travel with, almost every year I learn something else and something completely profound that maybe was said to me while I was speaking to the Lord, or maybe was said to them. So I think it's important what you said. It's important to approach it as a full 4 days. You're preparing, if you're from wherever you're traveling from, you're preparing yourself on the way here. And then, we have to engage in prayer on the way home and ask God for the armor to go back out into the real world.
You're so right, because the official part of the retreat's over, but like, at least for us, we have a long drive. Like, it's not over. We still have 5-6 hours of conversation to have, with God. And like the idea to commit to the full time, because I know yesterday, this morning I had temptation to skip mass. Last couple talks yesterday, I was like, I'm not gonna go, or just not even like entering into the talks. But I kept telling myself like, well, the retreat's not done, God's not done, so I don't want to miss out. So I need to enter into everything, or at least give everything a chance, give everything my time, because I'm here. So why not? Last question: why should any other man, Catholic or not, come to Manresa?
So there was a Jewish judge, and this coins Manresa so well. He said in a letter that he wrote to the fathers, Manresa, the place of sacred silence where no one talks to anyone, but everyone talks to God. No matter what your faith, no matter what your tenements are, everyone deserves the opportunity to commune with God. It should be an important part of your life. And without those opportunities to step away and have that time with God, the devil will ensnare you. I think one of the things that doesn't get spoken enough about currently in the Catholic Church is the idea of every man goes on one retreat a year. A lot of these retreat houses were founded back in a time period where your local pastor or your local preacher beat into everybody's head that one weekend or one 4-day period a year, you are to go on retreat and you are to commune with God. And I think we've lost that, and in losing that, people have kind of lost their center. And you miss out, maybe because you're so busy praying for other people, that you miss out on what God's personally trying to say to you.
Yeah. And that's huge, because you hear all the time people saying like, I don't hear God, I don't have time, blah, blah, blah. But, if, one chunk of the year, like at least for here, 4 days in silence, you're gonna hear him. I mean, like, unless you're fighting tooth and nail and you're just like, no, and find. And I don't even think that will work. I mean, at some point, he's gonna break through. Well, that's it.
Awesome.
Thanks. Time to head home.
Yeah, man.
So, these books contain the names of every man who has ever come on a retreat here at Manresa from the very beginning of retreats here at Manresa. And so, this weekend, our retreat is recorded, group 10A, 310, 313, 2019. So, every man who came this weekend, is here. And oh, look who's there. And so the scribe who does all the nice writing is an accomplished artist, and he stayed in a room above the chapel, and he created this picture over the weekend along with 44 or 45 other paintings. It's amazing.